Ambassador Khalilzad has worked tirelessly since his appointment in September 2018 to support a peace process that we all hope will result in a politically negotiated end to over 4 decades of war and suffering in Afghanistan. So thanks again to all of you for taking the time to join us today. As many of you know, USIP was founded by the US Congress 35 years ago as an independent, nonpartisan national institute charged with the vital mission of preventing, mitigating, and resolving violent conflict. USIP has been involved in Afghanistan since 2002 and supporting a sustainable and inclusive peace process in Afghanistan remains one of USIP's highest priority programs. Through our teams based in Afghanistan and in our DC headquarters, we support a range of programmatic activities, provide advice to policymakers, and conduct research and analysis, much of which you can access from USIP's website. In addition to our work in Afghanistan, USIP has been providing grants to organizations working to prevent, mitigate, and resolve violent conflict in Central Asia since 2003. Over the past few years, USIP has expanded our Central Asia program in partnership with the US State Department's C5+1 initiative. This initiative provides a platform to convene government stakeholders, experts, and civil society leaders from the 5 Central Asian states plus the US to share and promote best practices and approaches to countering and preventing violent extremism. I had the pleasure last October to attend the most recent CVE consultative working group in Samarkand, along with USIP's President, Nancy Limborg. I enjoyed the opportunity to engage with government leaders on current trends and best practices for CVE policy, not to mention the opportunity to visit the spectacular sites of Samarkand and Bukhara. Today's discussion comes at a critical but highly uncertain time for the Afghanistan peace process. While there's great hope that talks will begin soon between the Afghan government and the Taliban, there are still hurdles to overcome, including unacceptably high acts of violence and a dispute over prisoner releases between the Afghan government and the Taliban. Even if intra-Afghan negotiations do move forward, a successful political settlement and sustainable peace in Afghanistan will not be possible without strong regional support and consensus. While Afghanistan's eastern and western neighbors tend to draw the most headlines, its northern neighbors are linked together by robust historical and cultural ties. A peaceful Afghanistan would open opportunities for enhanced regional connectivity. As President Ashraf Ghani has noted, Afghanistan can serve as the key regional trade roundabout for Asia, linking South and Central Asia in mutual prosperity. The format for today's event is to have each ambassador provide brief opening remarks, which will be followed by a moderated discussion, and we'll end with a question and answer session with the online audience. With that, let me thank our online audience and panelists once again, and turn things over to the moderator of today's discussion, Scott Worden, who is the director of USIP's Afghanistan and Central Asia programs. And a big thanks to Scott for taking time off from his family holiday to join us this morning. So over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. It's also my pleasure to be part of this event with 4 distinguished ambassadors. I want to also reiterate Andrew's remarks that in all of the discussions about difficulties and challenges facing the Afghan peace process, I think this will be a discussion that has a more positive and promising prospect, because the support that Afghanistan's northern neighbors have given to Afghanistan over years of conflict can hopefully be a source of support going forward. Without further ado, let me turn over to Ambassador Rahmani to give remarks, and then I will lead a moderated discussion after all 4 ambassadors speak. Ambassador Rahmani, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, may peace be upon you. I would repeat what Mr. Wilder said. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on wherever you are. It's a great pleasure to join Ambassador Javlon, Vakhabov, Ambassador Erzhan, Kazykhan, and Ambassador Khalilzad to discuss how we can continue to unlock the enormous potential for peace and prosperity in the region. I want to thank the U.S. Institute of Peace for organizing this important discussion. I want to thank Mr. Wilder for his opening remarks and Mr. Worden for steering us throughout this session. Afghanistan and Central Asia constituted an important segment of the Great Silk Road, connecting Central Asia to South Asia and behind, through which people, ideas, goods, and knowledge and cultures flowed. Our shared history and cultural heritage is a testament to that. Ibn Sina, the father of the early medicine, came from Afghanistan and lived in Bukhara, while Al-Biruni, the father of comparative religion and the first anthropologist, came from Uzbekistan, but mostly lived in Ghazni province of Afghanistan. However, our shared history and cultural heritage did not keep us sufficiently connected. And today, Central Asia and South Asia are among the least integrated regions in the world. But fortunately, opportunities for collaboration are abundant. And we recognize that our economic development, security, and futures are tied together. We need policies and relationships reflective to that. Intra-regional trade could be dramatically expanded. One way to address this is by implementing what's already in the paper. For example, one key barrier is the cost and time of cross-border intra-regional trade. Fully implementation of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement could be extremely beneficial for addressing this issue in this region and beyond. The TIR Convention is another great instrument. Furthermore, we can help exporters access markets by reducing tariffs, easing the process of obtaining business visas, and help better facilitate banking transactions. Infrastructure development is at the core of regional cooperation. Central Asian governments are already collaborating on the Lapis Lazuli corridor, progressing the Digital CASA project, and working on the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program with ADB focusing on electricity, railways, and roads. Afghanistan and Uzbekistan are now connected by rail and have daily services, which has been key during the pandemic. Afghanistan was able to ship goods all the way to China through Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan because of this connection. But this is not all. We have so many opportunities to help each other grow. We just need to take advantage of the opportunities in front of us, whether they are in electricity, gas, fiber optics, or scaling up our agricultural products by combining them. Independently, we produce exports on a small scale, which makes it difficult for us to compete on the world stage, despite having a comparative advantage on both agricultural products and natural resources. If we combined our outputs, we would all be more competitive. Furthermore, we need to work collaboratively to make our borders both more secure and more efficient. We need to streamline customs and make it easier for legitimate actors, such as business people and tourists, to pass through. Similarly, we need to increase our intelligence sharing and improve our coordination on security matters. These are not all new ideas, but things we need to continue to work on. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to cement the foundations that we have already established. The Afghan people need their Central Asian neighbors to support Afghanistan's peace process with their consensus and commitment to a stable, peaceful, and free Afghanistan. That's reflective of its people's dreams and aspiration. And Afghanistan that continues to cherish the achievements of its past 2 decades and builds on them, and an Afghanistan that works with all its neighbors and allies with openness and constructiveness. These values are also key to retaining foreign investment. Terms like free and open are at the core of the lexicon of all US policies, be it domestic or international. This is reflected in the US national security strategy in Central Asia. In order to maintain the support of our allies and build a durable peace, we must fearlessly protect our democratic values. As we pursue a more integrated future, we need to keep in mind the nexus between poverty and conflict. Poverty does not always cause conflict or turn young men into terrorists, but it does create an environment in which increasing number of people have virtually no opportunity costs. Extremism grows where there is no hope. As countries with large youth populations, we need to reach out to our young people with opportunities and show them the hope for a better future. Today, more than ever, we must prioritize strengthening regional economic cooperation, which will play a critical role in providing socioeconomic and security benefit for the entire region. A peace deal may plant the seeds of peace, but development and regional cooperation are what makes peace grow. It makes economic development and trust in the future to encourage people to truly invest in peace. Peace and development are interdependent. Without peace, there is no development, and without development, there is no peace. Over the past few decades, we have keenly felt the opportunity cost and risks involved in not pursuing greater integration. Increased integration is mutually beneficial for all parties and will allow us to keep up with the rest of the world as people move and the world develops and changes. To sum up, in order to get up to speed, our countries need to harmonize regulation and remove barriers for trade and investment so that investors can look at the region collectively and invest with more ease. This would reduce corruption and make trade flow, which both boosts opportunity for us and make us more attractive to foreign direct investors. It's clear to me that the path to peace includes deepening integration with our neighbors and partners. Not only do we have a shared rich past, but we have an intertwined future. Now we need to align our vision and efforts to maximize the potential for our future. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "It isn't enough to talk about peace. We must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. We must work at it." Let's get to work together. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rahmani, for those remarks. Let me pass over to Ambassador Vakhabov. The floor is yours.
So, dear Dr. Wilder, Mr. Worden, my fellow ambassadors, it gives me a great pleasure to speak today about Uzbekistan's role in facilitating peace and stability, economic recovery, and greater resilience in Afghanistan when this country, despite many challenges, is on the cusp of a historic peace. And as never before, it is a high time for inclusive and unified government of Afghanistan and the Taliban to overcome their differences, seize the opportunity, and achieve long-deserved sustainable peace. And Uzbekistan is standing ready to support brotherly Afghanistan on this path. You know well, over the decades, Uzbekistan has been trying to promote peace in Afghanistan, being at the forefront with several initiatives, including establishment in 1997 of the contact group 6+2 that was later transformed to 6+3 format, with participation of the 6 neighboring countries to Afghanistan plus major powers and NATO, all aimed at peaceful resolution of the Afghan conflict. However, new momentum in this process has been gained after high-level international conference on Afghanistan, which took place on the initiative of President Shavkat Mirziyoyev in March 2018 in Tashkent. Indeed, it was not a one-time event. It became a breakthrough in the quest for ways the Afghan settlement. Tashkent Declaration adopted at the conference became a certain peace program for Afghanistan with a set of principles for peace and reconciliation, countering terrorism and economic reconstruction, all recognized by the international community. It was at the Tashkent Conference where international community became united with a cornerstone approach to promote direct negotiations between the Afghan government and the Taliban without preconditions. And in order to implement the Tashkent Declaration in close coordination with Kabul, Uzbekistan has several rounds of negotiations with the leaders of the main Afghan internal political forces, as well as Taliban representatives, in order to better understand their position and seek compromises. And moreover, we have maintained a continuous dialogue with the United States, Russia, China, Pakistan, Iran, India, and other countries of the region, as well as with key states of the Muslim world on the issue of Afghan settlement. And promoting the Afghanistan peace process and supporting the goal of durable political settlement was also a part of the agenda of inaugural US-Afghanistan-Uzbekistan trilateral meeting, co-chaired by Undersecretary David Hale, Foreign Minister of Afghanistan Muhammad Hanif Atmar, and Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan Abdulaziz Kamilov on May 27th, that led to establishing working groups on economy, security, and political cooperation. In order to achieve sustainable and long-term peace in Afghanistan, we deem it necessary to hold on to key principles of political settlement, above all: abstention from violence, comprehensive ceasefire, readiness to dialogue and compromises. As President Shavkat Mirziyoyev has underscored, secure Afghanistan means secure Uzbekistan, prosperous and stable South and Central Asia. And we remain committed to do our utmost in order to ensure the success of peace talks in Afghanistan. We are standing ready to provide a platform for direct, inclusive negotiations. And along with the peace process, we understand the significance of investing into economic sustainability, social stability of Afghanistan, and educating young generation of Afghans. We stopped looking at Afghanistan as a source of problems, headaches, and realizing that the country presents a unique opportunity for the entire Central Asia to have the shortest access to seaports and energy markets in South Asia. We would like to see Afghanistan as well integrated into Central Asian economic process, and we cannot stress enough how it is important. Afghanistan is already a top 10 trading partner of Uzbekistan, with trade turnover amounted to more than $600 million in 2019, almost 30% increase compared with 2016. These volumes are expected to increase up to $1.5 billion in the years to come. And given the increased challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, so maintaining uninterrupted supply of food commodities and essential medicine has become crucial as never before. Uzbekistan has provided humanitarian aid with vitally important food commodities and PPE to neighboring Afghanistan amid pandemic. And during the visit of Ambassador Khalilzad, whom I'm very glad to see today, and DFC CEO Adam Boyler to Uzbekistan on late June, we have explored opportunities for DFC's engagement in a number of Uzbekistan infrastructure projects contributing to expansion of economic relations and connectivity between Afghanistan and Central Asia. And I would like to particularly welcome the DFC's willingness to support establishing the Regional Investment Fund with all Central Asian countries, as well as Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, aimed at improving infrastructure development and regional connectivity. One of the most important projects that my fellow ambassador of Afghanistan has mentioned is the construction of a railway from Mazar-e-Sharif to Kabul that could subsequently be extended eastwards to Pakistan, city of Peshawar, with further access to the ports of Gwadar and Karachi. And along with shortest access to the ports of the Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf, it also creates thousands of new jobs for Afghan citizens, providing transit revenues and increased trade turnover. In order to facilitate trade and transit of goods in 2016, we have established a logistics center in the southern part of Uzbekistan, Termis Cargo, with cargo servicing capacity of 70 containers per day, that provides a complex of transport and logistics services for customs clearance, cargo handling, terminal warehousing, intermodal transportation to and from Afghanistan. And during the trilateral meeting on May, we also agreed to promote trade through the development of the free economic zone at the Termis border crossing. For over 15 years, Uzbekistan has been a reliable partner of Kabul in the field of electricity supply. So compared with 2002, the volume of electricity supplies to Afghanistan increased by 30 times. And effective from January 2018, Uzbekistan reduced the price of electricity supply to Afghanistan by 45% to 5 cents per kilowatt. Uzbekistan has also started the construction of 500 kilowatt Kazykhan Kumri power transmission line in Afghanistan. After its completion, so Uzbekistan will be able to increase the electricity supply to Afghanistan by 70%, up to 6 billion kilowatt hours per year. The implementation of this project will provide opportunities to increase the production capacity and create, of course, new jobs in Afghanistan. Moreover, it can become an integral part of the CASA 1000 project, connecting Kabul to the unified energy system of the entire Central Asia. So another vital project is the use of the potential of the educational center in Termis to train Afghan specialists. Currently, the center is successfully operating with 170 Afghan students, including women, training them based on skill-oriented programs. In the future, we are planning to increase this number, the number of students up to 250. So joint efforts to implement these and other infrastructure projects facilitating cross-border trade and agriculture for greater food security, cooperation in the field of health and pharmaceutical supplies to address the challenges of COVID-19, as well as support of women's economic empowerment within the US government-led WGDP initiative were discussed during US Afghanistan-Uzbekistan trilateral economic working group meeting this Tuesday. And we look forward to practical implementation of defined roadmap. To conclude, I would like to stress that without peace in brotherly Afghanistan, we will never reach prosperity in the region of Central Asia. The prospects of sustainable development in Central Asia are inextricably linked with the achievement of peace in neighboring Afghanistan. So the biggest solution is the comprehensive support in terms of Afghanistan's integration into regional economic processes. And my country has been and will continue to support the peace process, actively engage in the economic reconstruction of Afghanistan, facilitate the development of transport and energy infrastructure, and train the people to the best of our knowledge. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And let us move now directly to Ambassador Kazykhan.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning. I'm delighted to join our good friends and colleagues, and I hope you and your families are staying safe during these difficult times. And I would like to thank the International Peace Institute for providing its platform to facilitate our exchange of views and informative discussion. And I would also like to take this opportunity and welcome my colleague ambassadors, Ambassador of Afghanistan, Ambassador of Uzbekistan, and Ambassador Khalilzad. Speaking about the topic under consideration, I would like to start by saying that for the past 20 years, Kazakhstan has been actively involved in promoting peace and stability in Afghanistan through its tireless efforts across the whole spectrum of areas, including assistance to national security forces, infrastructure development, food security, education, empowerment of women, and many more. Representing Central Asia in the United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member in 2018, Kazakhstan sponsored a high-level debate on building regional partnership in Afghanistan and Central Asia as a model to link security and development. As you recall, we also led United Nations Security Council visit to Kabul in January 2018. My country proposed to create a model zone of peace, security, and cooperation in Central Asia to transform the landlocked region into land-linked one by connecting it to neighboring regions through trade, transit, transportation, and energy exchange, including Afghanistan. It is our principal position that Afghanistan should be viewed not as a threat, but as an important and high potential partner. Recently, President of Kazakhstan, Tokayev, appointed one of the seasoned Kazakh diplomats, Talgat Kaliyev, as a special envoy for Afghanistan. We welcome signing of the agreement for bringing peace to Afghanistan in Doha in February 2020, and looking forward to its successful implementation and formation of inclusive Afghan government. I would like to take this opportunity and highly commend the tireless efforts of Ambassador Khalilzad, and I'm sure that you've been doing a great job and you have the full support from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is ready to make a substantial input into the peace-building process in Afghanistan. We believe that Central Asian countries can play a pivotal role in providing a solid basis for the inter-Afghan talks. Kazakhstan believes that security and development are closely interrelated. We recognize and strengthen the security development nexus. In that regard, we are confident that the projects pursued by Central Asian countries with Kabul will support and contribute to peace and stability in Afghanistan. In other words, security and development today have an aspect that is more regional than country-specific, and therefore requires regional approach. Over the last years, Kazakhstan allocated $6 million to assist Afghan national security forces and provides smooth functioning of the Northern Distribution Network. It is important to advance regional cooperation to counter illicit drug trafficking. In this light, would like to draw your attention to the Central Asian Regional Information and Coordination Center operating under the auspices of UNDC in Almaty that plays an integral part in these efforts. With its immense potential, its favorable geography, and considerable human capital, Afghanistan could and should be seen as a strong partner to join economic projects. Once reaching stability and sustainable growth, Afghanistan should become an important bridge connecting Central Asia with the enormous market of South Asia and beyond. We support expanding our economic cooperation with this country, as well as support Kabul's membership at a trade and investment framework agreement between the United States and Central Asia. Strong and peaceful Afghanistan is a good neighbor of Central Asia, will have a great positive impact on our region. To date, Kazakhstan provided more than $80 million worth of assistance to Afghanistan. My country has participated in the construction of critical social and transport infrastructure in Afghanistan. We are interested in supporting new projects and enhancing our trade cooperation with Kabul. We also call on the donor community to increase its contribution to peace and development in and around Afghanistan. Kazakhstan is working to create a United Nations-led regional hub in Almaty, designed to help deliver coordinated support for the implementation of sustainable development goals to the countries of the whole region. Our flagship education program trained more than 1,000 Afghan students in Kazakhstan's universities. In 2018, Kazakhstan hosted a first regional conference on empowering women in Afghanistan, and we have its direct outcomes, the education program for Afghan women in universities of Kazakhstan. This is very much in line with the US Women Global Development Prosperity Initiative. We would like to join our hands to promote long-term economic resilience by encouraging and promoting full participation and empowerment of women. Currently, Kazakhstan implementing EU and UNDP sponsored program on vocational education for Afghani girls. The scholarship will last for 2 years, whereby students will have a chance to live and study in our southern capital, the city of Almaty. This year, in light of COVID-19, Kazakhstan delivered significant amount of food products as our humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. And to conclude, I would like to say that being the biggest economy in the region, Kazakhstan is undertaking every effort to assist global and regional development that remains an essential element of the country's foreign and economic policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And finally, let me pass the microphone to Ambassador Khalilzad.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. It's a pleasure to be back with USIP, and it's a great honor to be with the distinguished ambassadors that have already spoken, the ambassador of Afghanistan, the ambassador of Uzbekistan, and the ambassador of Kazakhstan. Outstanding statements have been made by the three distinguished ambassadors. I would like to reflect on what has been said and make 4 points. Point one, this is an important moment for Afghanistan and for the region, perhaps a defining moment. Second, that what happens in Afghanistan will have a significant impact for the region. And what the region does will have an important impact on Afghanistan. This is a moment for peace to be pursued in Afghanistan and for development, stability, and trade and integration that peace can facilitate. And third, that the United States has been active on both tracks, the track of peace in Afghanistan and the track of regional integration, regional trade, developing a common vision, if you like, for regional development, security, and prosperity between Central Asian countries and Afghanistan, and between Afghanistan and South Asia, starting with Pakistan, in the hope that ultimately, over time, Afghanistan can bring the Central Asian nations and South Asian nations together for the common and glorious objective of a peaceful, prosperous, and stable region. Let me say that we are very much committed to doing our part, the United States, in achieving both objectives, the objective of peace and the objective of regional development and cooperation that is needed to sustain if there is a peace agreement among Afghans, and then to achieve the benefits or to make progress on achieving the potential benefits and the opportunities that peace can provide. Regarding peace in Afghanistan, why do I say this is perhaps a defining moment? As several of you have said, Afghanistan has never been closer to an Afghan-owned, Afghan-led peace process, defined as negotiations between the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan negotiating team and the Taliban. The war in Afghanistan has been an obstacle to the potential that we have talked about. It has been a huge burden on the people of Afghanistan who are yearning for peace. And it has been a burden on the international community, especially the United States. With the agreement signed between the United States and the Taliban, the next step is intra-Afghan negotiations. Two issues stand in the way. One is the issue of prisoners that have been agreed to be released or exchanged between the Taliban and the government of Afghanistan. I'm pleased that as of now, the Afghan government has released more than 4,400, according to its own numbers, out of 5,000 that has been the goal. And the Taliban have released, in turn, from the objective of 1,000 prisoners, 861. Most of the distance has been traveled in this difficult road, but the last mile remains very challenging. And we are committed very much with working with the Afghan government and with the Taliban to get to the objective of satisfying the concerns with regard to the prisoner release as a confidence building measure, the prisoners exchange, so that inter-Afghan negotiations can start. The second issue has been the issue of violence, and that violence has been too high. We are working with both the government of Afghanistan as well as with the Taliban to encourage a reduction of violence by all sides. Too many Afghans are dying. We are also delivering on our commitment to the Afghan government and to the Afghan security forces, and consistent with the agreement that we have signed with the Taliban to come to the defense of the Afghan security forces when they are attacked, and to continue as described in the joint statement that was issued on the same day that we signed the agreement with the Taliban, the commitment that we made with Afghanistan, restating our principal goals and commitments to the people and the government of Afghanistan. I'm hoping that we, as we move closer to inter-Afghan negotiations, which I hope will happen in the coming weeks, and that violence will be less than it is now, although currently, this year so far, the number of Afghan security forces killed is between 35 and 40% less than last year for the same period. And the number of civilians killed is also significantly lower for the same period compared to last year. Of course, we're pleased that since the agreement was signed, no American or coalition soldier has been killed by the Taliban in Afghanistan. But although what I described in terms of decreased levels is significant, we're not satisfied. We want further reductions. Second issue is the issue of the region, the role of the region with regard to the peace process. I'm grateful to for the support that our effort has had from friendly countries, partner countries of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. We believe that these countries have an important role to play in encouraging the Afghan sides, the government and the Taliban, to overcome the challenge of that remain, the challenge of violence and prisoners, then to facilitate, once inter-Afghan negotiations begin, to help encourage compromises on an agreement on a political roadmap that ends the Afghan war. There is an agreement on a permanent ceasefire and a political formula for ending the suffering of the Afghan people. And then subsequently, once an agreement is reached, to help sustain that agreement by encouraging implementation of the agreement by the sides that make the agreement, and then to sustain it. And on sustainment, I come to my third point, which is the issue of development, that peace facilitates, as the ambassador of Afghanistan said so eloquently, peace opens the opportunity for further economic development that needs to be taken advantage of, but at the same time that peace, for peace to be sustained, economic development is also not only important, but perhaps necessary. And on that point, I would like to say that we have developed, already a lot has happened between Afghanistan and Central Asia, and between Afghanistan and Pakistan, but we are encouraging more. We have established, as was described, a trilateral with Uzbekistan, including Afghanistan. We're about to start a trilateral with Afghanistan, with Tajikistan. We're working on an agreement between Afghanistan and Pakistan with support from our British colleagues, all as parallel and related and in support of the peace process, but also preparing for broadening and deepening economic ties, trade, and cooperation, so that during the period of getting to peace, but also if there is an agreement on peace during the implementation, and there is steps in place for taking advantage of that peace for the well-being of the people of the region, for greater trade in goods and services, and in investment opportunities that would become available. Last point, although big decisions are to be made by the leaders of the region, which will have significant consequences, decisions that are going to be faced, challenges that will have to be overcome, the United States will do its part. I want to assure you all that we will do our part, both to get to peace and then to achieve the great potential for economic cooperation and economic prosperity that exists We want a unified, democratic, peaceful Afghanistan that is at peace with itself and with the region. And we want a region that is more integrated, more developed, and more cooperative with each other to achieve the great potential. And would like to see a friendly relationship between the United States, close cooperation between the United States and Afghanistan and the region, including ultimately Central Asia, Afghanistan, and South Asia as for the future well-being of the people of the region, and also for the well-being of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Khalilzad, and to all of the speakers for really comprehensive and thorough remarks. I want to, I'll ask a few questions now. I will note that people that are viewing this live can ask questions on YouTube chat feature, and they can also join the discussion via Twitter on #AfghanPeace. My first question is noting that there's a strong common theme among all of the presentations about the economic opportunity that greater integration of Afghanistan with Central Asia in a peaceful environment can bring. There's a debate in all peace processes is what are the incentives to bring the parties to agreement and to overcome spoilers to peace. And while the economic realities and benefits seem clear, they have not been enough so far to achieve breakthroughs. And my question is, given the opportunities that are discussed here today, how can those be packaged, communicated, used as an incentive to the parties that are delaying the peace process, whether that is parties within Afghanistan or outside of Afghanistan? So how can these economic opportunities be inserted into the peace process so they really act as pressure on different parties to come to an agreement? Let me ask you first, Ambassador Khalilzad, and then ideas from the other ambassadors. I think you may be on mute.
Thank you, Scott. Of course, the primary motivation for peace in Afghanistan is the desire of the Afghan people for peace, the costs of war, and the length of time that the war has taken, war weariness by the parties. And I believe that the economic incentives can be an additional factor. And that's why recognizing the opportunities that are there, the great potential that exists in Afghanistan itself. Afghanistan's GNP, for example, right now is something like $19 billion plus dollars. It can easily be 1.5 times that and more over time. There are great resources that can be developed. There is great potential in connectivity and trade that can be achieved. But what stands in the way is of achieving all the potential as quickly as it's possible is the conflict. That projects, some of which have been committed to in terms of developing the country's resources, have not been implemented even by foreign investors because of the, in part because of the conflict. And the Taliban also, on the other side, have access to some resources, but those are, if you compare them in terms of numbers, are quite limited. So that's why I took Mr. Bowler with me on the last trip to talk with the President Ghani, who has a great vision for the future of the not only Afghanistan economically, but also for the region in terms of connectivity and trade, to talk to him, talk to Dr. Abdullah, who has a responsibility for peace, and to the Taliban. And I have to say that those conversations are very, very interesting and very useful. And we did it similarly in the region, because we are willing to invest not only ourselves, but with partner countries. The ambassador of Uzbekistan talked about the regional fund, but we've talked to the countries of the Gulf. We're talking with others. We're spending $38 billion now for the military effort in Afghanistan. Others are spending money on the military effort. Imagine if a portion of that, because if we could save that because of a peace, is invested in economic development and the opportunities that exist. So we are doing, Scott, our part. I'm sure we're just starting. More can be done, and more will be done in cooperation with others in the coming weeks.
Thank you. Let me ask if Ambassador Rahmani would like to give her response or other ideas on how the positive benefits of greater economic integration can be directly applied.
Thank you. Building on the ideas that Ambassador Khalilzad mentioned, I would also say that in order to stop this vicious cycle, we need to take some bold steps. We are caught in this vicious cycle of insecurity, therefore there's no development. And because there's no development, insecurity continues. As long as the cost of war is too low, and as I understand, with $60 million, you can continue the war in Afghanistan. And it is too low. So we need to bring the benefits of peace high enough in order to stop and break out of this cycle. I again say we need some bold steps that, given still the situation we are in order to break through, we need to work together and invest in regional cooperation and economic development to get those people that out of poverty and lack of opportunities turn to violence, to prevent them from turning to violence. So I think that we need to bring the price of peace lower than the price for the benefits of war. Otherwise, this is going to unfortunately continue and we will be stuck in this vicious cycle. We need some practical steps to be taken. We have done a lot in terms of the meetings. We have great agreements in place. We have made memorandums of understandings with all our partners. But in terms of the practical steps, I think we are falling quite short. And therefore, we need to just ramp up those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me turn to Ambassador Vakhabov. You mentioned the Tashkent Conference and you mentioned Uzbekistan's active diplomacy in trying to facilitate political agreement between the Afghan parties. Related to the discussion we've just been having, are there more specific ways that you think Uzbekistan or potentially your neighbors can incentivize the different parties or obstacles to a peace process?
So thank you so much for this question. We are very optimistic about the prospects of the peace talks and hope that inclusive intra-Afghan negotiations will lead to finding compromises between all parties involved. And we hope, still hope, the formation of a High Council for National Reconciliation will be completed soon. And it will start working with Taliban towards peace, reconciliation, and national unity. So we are also confident that the reduction in violence leading to a ceasefire would save lives, thousands of lives, creates a more conducive environment to begin intra-Afghan peace negotiations, and enable the government to focus on addressing challenges posed by COVID-19. So we are firm believers that intra-Afghan talks should reflect the best interests of all Afghan people, and efforts pertaining to the peace process should not erode the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution and international law. And here I would like also to underscore that our offer to conduct intra-Afghan peace talks in Samarkand is still stand. We are ready to create all the necessary conditions for direct negotiations between the government of Afghanistan and the Taliban. And so in this context, Uzbekistan already had experience in handling conflict settlement. We demonstrated real politics through facilitating the settlement of the inter-Tajik conflict in 1997. And for 25 years, border and water issues with our neighbors have remained in limbo. And thanks to a new regional approach by President Mirziyoyev, thanks to his neighbors first policy, a compromise was reached over all sensitive issues. So due to these reasons, we are confident that a long-awaited peace and stability in Afghanistan could be definitely achieved.
Thank you very much. I want to ask a question from the audience, and this is from Wali Frozan, and he asks, what are the chances of a full withdrawal of US troops in the near future? So I'll turn to Ambassador Khalilzad first on that, but I want to broaden the question and to include others as well. And that is about the broader issue of a US troop presence and what it means for geopolitics of the region. Because certainly the US troop presence has been a stabilizing force in some ways, and it is one of the key objectives of the Taliban in order to continue with negotiations. Russia and China also have interests and concerns regarding the US troop presence and have interests in Central Asia. And so first to Ambassador Khalilzad, if you want to say anything about the trajectory of US troops, but for the other ambassadors, let me turn to you after that and ask, how do you see the specific issue of US troops affecting greater regional politics?
Oh, thank you, Scott, and thank you to the questioner. As you all know, we have agreed in the agreement that we have signed with the Taliban that assuming conditions that those troops are not necessary, our troops are not necessary to be in Afghanistan, the United States would like to bring its troops home, and the same is true of our coalition partners. And we have a timetable for withdrawal of those forces, but the withdrawal is very much condition-based. And so at this point, we have finished the first phase of the withdrawal of US forces to bringing them down to 8,600. We are in phase 2 now, and we'll see whether the Taliban honor their commitments, because our decisions, our commitments are contingent on their commitment, and the agreement has 4 elements: the element of counterterrorism, the element of withdrawal, of course, and then the element of inter-Afghan negotiations and an agreement on a comprehensive permanent ceasefire. We do not seek presence in Afghanistan, a military presence, as an end in itself. It'll be determined by the conditions, and I have described them. Let me say a word on the perspective of others. both China and Russia and others have expressed the support for this approach, and the UN Security Council endorsed, as you know, the US Taliban agreement and the Afghan government in the joint statement that we issued on the same day also embraces the same perspective, the same elements. So that's where we are. That's our approach, and we are on course with that approach.
Thank you. Ambassador Kazykhanov, maybe I can turn to you with this question. If you have thoughts on US troop presence and how that affects the region, but also more broadly, with Central Asia being in between Russia and China, and with the significant US presence through our Afghanistan engagement, how do you see the evolving geostrategic picture going along with Afghan peace negotiations?
Well, thank you very much, Scott. I would be very brief. It's obvious that security and stability in Afghanistan plays an important role for Central Asia. And we know that the US have decreased the number of US troops, military personnel in Afghanistan. And in this regard, we hope that the United States will ensure safe and responsible drawdown of troops and will not permit a security vacuum in Afghanistan. That will be my answer.
Thank you very much. Let me take another question from Richard Hoagland, former US official in the region. And he asks about the C5+1. So this is the cooperation project of the US and the 5 Central Asian former Soviet republics. Can that be expanded to Afghanistan is the question. And I would amplify that by saying, you know, to what extent does Afghanistan play a role in helping the broader Central Asian region improve communications, trade, and cultural exchange? Let me ask Ambassador Vakhabov to speak to that first. I think you may be muted.
So before I turn to answering this question, just wanted to make some comments regarding the US troops withdrawal from Afghanistan. So in our understanding, so the presence of US troops in Afghanistan has been ensuring in many dimensions overall security in the region of Central Asia for many years. And however, considering the importance of achieving sustainable peace in Afghanistan, ensuring regional and international security, the troop withdrawal, the coalition troops withdrawal, in our views, should be done with a due regard for the progress of achieving peace and all aspects of its sustainability. So with respect to the question addressed by Ambassador Hoagland, so I'm very pleased to let you know that the trilateral cooperation format, the United States, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, that was launched just a few months ago and held its first meeting recently, went extremely well and very productive. And as a result of all those arrangements that we've been able to achieve, so this week on Tuesday, as I have mentioned in my remarks, the economic working group meeting within the framework of the trilateral format held its first meeting. Very promising, I would say, and so many opportunities to explore. So the all parties involved have been discussing, and with regard to to the linkage with regard to the C5+1 format, Indeed, Afghanistan is a hot topic within the framework of C5+1. So every single time when the leaders are gathering, so we are focusing on the security issues and touching upon the Afghanistan reconciliation process as well. And in this regard, I think these two formats may have a future in terms of working together. And at this point, I just wanted to stress on another format is that I mean, the Uzbekistani government and its leadership are in favor of, and I'm talking about TIFA, Trade and Investment Framework Agreement that has been signed several years ago. And now we are very much looking forward to joining Afghanistan to this format and actually being a part of the economic dimension of the C5+1 platform that actually so being a part of this TIFA format. And hopefully, this year, during the summit of the TIFA ministerial, we'll be able to achieve a compromise, and Afghanistan finally will be the member of this format. So that's the way how we are envisioning the involvement of Afghanistan into C5+1 format.
Scott, I want to say a word that we support what the ambassador of Uzbekistan has said, and we favor an ever stronger relationship between C5 and Afghanistan and in the C5+1 format, one being the United States. In fact, when Mr. Boran and I traveled to Uzbekistan, we had a session with the C5 ministers focused on Afghan peace and preparing for that peace should it happen. As I said, challenges are obviously still there, what the implications could be in terms of regional development, trade, and what the United States is prepared to do to help. We think that's an important format, and increased cooperation and integration of Afghanistan with it, we believe is an important objective, and we applaud what the ambassador of Uzbekistan said.
Thank you very much. Let me just turn briefly to Ambassador Kazykhan and then to you, Ambassador Rahmani, about this issue in terms of integrating Afghanistan into the C5+1 or other regional institutions.
Yeah, Scott, thank you very much. I mentioned in my introductory remarks that we welcome Afghanistan's full membership at the Trade and Investment Framework Agreement that exists between Central Asia and the United States. We think that C5+1 format that has been initially proposed by Kazakhstan plays an important role in the region, and we think that greater involvement of Afghanistan into this platform would be very instrumental, and Afghanistan remains to be one of the important topics of the discussions at the C5+1 meetings at the ministerial level, and so we're looking forward to welcome Afghanistan, and that would be my answer.
Thank you, Ambassador Rahmani. What's your view?
Sure. I just want to add a few additional points to what has been already said about this, and addressing the incentives, why these mechanisms should be supported and improved. Number one, Afghanistan is the shortest path connecting Central Asia and South Asia. There is an abundance of energy resources in Central Asia that South Asia is really very much in need. Likewise, there is certain products that, like cotton, that Central Asia could export to South Asia, and South Asia in turn can export one of their prominent products or the top products, which is garments, which is very much shared among the region. And there is abundant opportunities as such that should there be mechanisms more for cooperation and connectivity, then all of these could service and benefit all of us. In terms of the C+5, C5+1, we are looking forward to be joining this platform, because this would contribute in terms of coordination towards peace and stability in the region, for security in the region, as well as economic development. Some practical suggestions in terms of how we could take this into action would be, a lot of the American companies over the past few years have taken lots of interest and have started their businesses in Uzbekistan. With the help of DFC, and thanks to Ambassador Khalilzad and the trip that they made to the region, we think that it is not too difficult to expand their branches to Afghanistan. That way, these would plant the seeds of cooperation. We would put our labor and the youth, young population of Afghanistan into work, and that would contribute in turn into stability and economic development. I believe that the investment in infrastructure is key to peace and stability in Afghanistan and in the region. Why is that? Because infrastructure would bring connectivity to the region. Connectivity will bring people together, and that's what builds trust. Without trust, we can't have peace, whether it is within the nation or outside and abroad. So I think that this equation of being least integrated region needs to be inverted and reversed in order for all of us to reach the potentials that we have and we all deserve.
Thank you very much for that. Let me take another question from the audience, and this is from Jennifer Grossman, and she says, how can women in Afghanistan and Central Asia be supported in peace building and in economic development? So let me go back to you, Ambassador Rahmani. Obviously, women's rights is a key concern of many Afghans in negotiations with the Taliban. So how do you see that playing out, and what can be done to better empower women and include women in the peace process?
Well, my first reaction is, how can you have peace and development without incorporating full participation of women? Peace and development are simply not going to take place and descend in Afghanistan and in the region unless you utilize all the human capacity and the potential that the country has. And neglecting half of its resources, of course, is not going to get us anywhere. In terms of how we could practically put that into action, the initiatives like Ambassador Vakhabov referred to, in terms of exchanges, capacity building, providing opportunities for the women entrepreneurs, for women businesses to be part of it is of immense importance. Another very important aspect, as we are at the brink of this unprecedented opportunity for peace, is that we need to ensure two very important aspects of for a durable and sustainable peace to be very well elaborated in this process. One, of course, is we have heard a lot about the meaningful, but I would say substantive participation of women. Women should not be an issue on the table, but they should be a party in the table in order to make sure that we would achieve sustainable and durable peace. Number two is economic development must be a very essential part of moving forward and thinking about the future of Afghanistan, not only between the Islamic government of Afghanistan and the Taliban that they're negotiating, but also something that our partners who have helped us so significantly over the past 2 decades, and we are extremely grateful for that, as well as the neighbors who will be playing a role and have played a major role, need to concentrate on what is our agenda of breaking from this cycle of conflict. And that is through development, that is through economic integration, because other than that, we are not living in a world that we can insulate and isolate ourselves. Therefore, we need to all be invested and look into creative ways. We are countries in the region with very young population. We need to invest in them and make sure that we provide them the opportunities that they deserve. And women are a very integral and fundamental part of this. Of course, I understand why this question should be first directed to me, but I think I need all the other panelists to be talking more than I do about this in order for this to really materialize. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good point. Well, let me give Ambassador Kazykhan a chance to elaborate on that, since he mentioned this topic a bit.
Well, Scott, thank you very much. I absolutely agree with Ambassador of Afghanistan that women empowerment is an absolutely important issue. I mentioned in my remarks in the beginning that 2 years ago in September 2018, Kazakhstan initiated a regional conference on empowerment of women in Afghanistan. So we hosted a high-level delegation from Afghanistan at the ministerial level. There were women represented from all capitals of Central Asia. And the main topic was their entrepreneurship, exchange of experience and knowledges, how women from all the countries of Central Asia and Afghanistan can support each other and help each other to promote education, etc. So if you go into the cities of Kazakhstan, you will find hundreds of Afghanistan students studying in Kazakhstan, and a lot of girls among them. And I mentioned that European Union, for example, has allocated $2.5 million for the special program of girls' vocational education, and we are about to start implementing this project. And I also very much encourage our U.S. partners to look into the women entrepreneurship and empowerment of women of Afghanistan through the lenses of Women Global Development and Prosperity Initiative. And much could be learned from the experience of Central Asian countries, first and foremost Kazakhstan, where we have quite a sizable number of women in the parliament. We have women in the government, and we have a special entities and bodies bringing together women entrepreneurs throughout the country. And I think the sky is the limit, and we are ready to work hand in hand with our U.S. partners in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We just have a few minutes remaining in the session, and I want to ask a question from Pamela Constable of the Washington Post. She asks it to Ambassador Khalilzad, and that is, what do you see looking forward are the greatest regional challenges to concluding a peace agreement?
I think the biggest challenge is to decrease the prospects or the potential for spoiling behavior because of unrelated problems of Afghanistan. And one has to do with our relations with Iran, that Iran has not been as supportive as it should be in the effort to get to intra-Afghan negotiations and to an Afghan settlement, largely because of the state of our relationship with them and their recommendations. If I take seriously what the Deputy Minister, Foreign Minister of Iran said in Kabul, a few days ago was he doesn't like the peace process, and he doesn't like the U.S. military presence in Afghanistan, which means that a formula that they prefer is that the U.S. abandons Afghanistan without a peace process, which means war. So that's one. Two, I worry also whether other differences or rivalries, whether it's in the Gulf or in South Asia, could also pose a challenge with regard to the regional support for a peace process. We have worked very hard with our European allies, with Russia, with China. We have the format of the trilateral with Russia and China in support of the peace process. We have worked hard with India and Pakistan in support of the peace process and support and the government of Afghanistan's initiative recently to host a regional meeting that brought India and Pakistan together in support of peace. And we have worked also with our Gulf friends, all of whom we hope will be supportive. I think for peace to be achieved and be sustained, there is a need for broad participation in Afghanistan in the peace process and support for it, and including women. I'm very proud of Ambassador Rahmani. She is an example of what Afghan women have the potential to do and the achievements that they have had, and our role in that process, including starting with the Constitution, where we supported the idea of a 25% representation of women at the minimum in Afghan parliament. And I have to say that also the Iraqis then imitated Afghanistan and put the same thing in their constitution. So, and I am insisting on behalf of the United States that women be at the table during negotiations, but at the same time, it is very important for peace to be achieved and sustained that the region also is positively engaged. And we have even agreed to sit in meetings, focus on Afghanistan with Iran, because we would like Iran also to be supportive. So Pamela, who knows Afghanistan well, has asked a great question.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now let me turn to Ambassador Rahmani for the last word. What are your comments on regional challenges for Afghanistan's future and future peace?
Thank you, Scott. I like to end on a positive note and not focus on challenges, but opportunities from the region. And having said that, I would like to again reiterate what I said at the end of my remarks. Let's get to work. Let's work together. Let's break this cycle and loop of let's wait and see how the politics of the region will turn in Afghanistan and continue to be in this wait and see mode, and instead break it for once and get to work. Take a bit of risk, invest in the things that we haven't done in the past decades, and see how it goes. We have already tested the wait and see for too long. I think it's time to get to do it differently. I would also say that this is the same idea about the women participation. We had it for too long without them. It is better now to give them a chance. So let's put all our forces together and focus on positive things, focus on what we have done and build on it, and focus on economic development for the region. That is the route that will lead us to peace, not the one that is focused and continuously concentrating in this vortex of what is going to happen and how we can be risk averse, because we cannot. Today's world is completely at a different stage that we cannot just isolate ourselves. Therefore, we can take the bold steps of getting practical and working on regional economic cooperation. That's the road to peace for Afghanistan and for the region. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for ending on a positive note. And as I mentioned at the outset, we wanted to have this format of a conversation, these participants, because there is good news and there is support coming from the Central Asia region for Afghanistan. So let me have Ambassador Rahmani's positive words be the conclusion of this. Let me thank the speakers for their time and for their efforts to support a peaceful resolution of the Afghan conflict. And let me thank all of you that are watching on YouTube, on Twitter, and have participated by asking questions and posting tweets. We hope to have more of these conversations again, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.